Eat on the floor.
The next morning, the mansion was different. The dining room was empty. The debris had been cleared. David ordered that no new table be bought. Instead, he went to the garage and brought in an old round wooden table that had been collecting dust, the table from their old apartment, the one Martha had saved. He put it in the center of the room. It looked ridiculous under the $12,000 chandelier, scratched, small, and humble. But that night, for dinner, they sat at that table. David fired the chef. He asked Martha to teach him how to cook potato soup. Elena didn't join them. She couldn't handle the change. She left a week later, citing irreconcilable differences. She wanted the high life, the perfect image. She didn't want a husband who spent his evenings playing cards with his mother and washing dishes by hand. David let her go. He gave her the condo, the car, and a generous settlement. He realized she was just a reflection of who he used to be. For the next 6 months, David and Martha lived a different life. They traveled, not to fancy resorts, but to the places Martha had always wanted to see but couldn't afford. The Grand Canyon, the fields of tulips in Holland, the little village in Italy where her parents were born. David held her arm everywhere they went, not to support her. She was strong now. The arthritis never returned, but because he wanted to be close to her. He listened to her stories. He learned about the sacrifices she had made, the dreams she had buried so his could grow. He learned that he wasn't a self-made man. He was a man made by a mother. 6 months later, almost to the day of the stranger's visit, Martha passed away in her sleep. She didn't die in a nursing home. She didn't die alone. She died in the master bedroom of the mansion, the room David had insisted she take. She died with a smile on her face, holding a picture of her and David from their trip to Italy. At the funeral, David stood up to speak. The church was packed with his business associates, eager to see the billionaire. But David didn't talk about business. He talked about a bowl of soup. "I thought I was a giant," David said to the crowd, his hand resting on the simple pine casket. "I thought I'd carried the world on my shoulders. But I was wrong. I was a small man standing on the shoulders of a giant. My mother was the giant, and when she stumbled, instead of catching her, I pushed her down." He paused, looking at the back of the church. For a second, he thought he saw a figure in a dusty coat standing in the shadows, nodding. "God gave me a second chance," he continued. "He turned my gold into ash to show me that love is the only currency that matters in the end. Don't make my mistake. Don't wait for the stranger to knock at your door. Don't wait for your table to turn to dust. Go home, kiss your mother, hug your father, because the only thing you can take with you when you leave this world is the love you gave away." David stepped down. He walked out of the church, a man who had less money than before, no wife, and a smaller social circle. But as he looked up at the blue sky, he felt lighter. He felt rich. And somewhere, in a realm where the streets are paved with something far more durable than gold, Martha was smiling. She was sitting at a long table, her hands steady, her eyes bright, waiting for her son to come home. But not yet. He had work to do.
The chandelier in the dining room cost $12,000. It hung like a constellation of captured stars, casting a prismatic glow over the mahogany table that was long enough to seat 20 people. But tonight, only 3 people were seated. At the head of the table sat David, 45 years old, impeccably dressed in a bespoke suit. He was the picture of American success. He was a man who moved mountains in the corporate world, a man whose signature could launch skyscrapers and dissolve companies. To his right sat his wife, Elena, beautiful, sharp, and cold as a diamond. She was scrolling through her phone, her perfectly manicured nails clicking against the screen, barely acknowledging the food in front of her. And at the far end of the table, isolated like an island in a dark sea, sat Martha. Martha was 78, but she looked older. Her hands, gnarled by arthritis and decades of labor, trembled constantly. She wore a faded cardigan that she refused to throw away because David's father had bought it for her 30 years ago. In this palace of glass and steel, she looked like a relic from another time, a stain on a perfect canvas. "David," Elena said without looking up from her phone, "she's doing it again." David sighed, putting down his fork. He didn't need to ask what it was. He looked down the table. Martha was trying to eat her soup. It was a rich, creamy lobster bisque prepared by their private chef. But Martha's shaking hands made the spoon clatter against the fine china bowl. Clink, clink, clink. The sound was rhythmic and irritating, like a dripping faucet in the middle of the night. A small drop of orange soup fell onto the pristine white tablecloth. "Mother?" David said, his voice tight with suppressed annoyance. "Please, try to be more careful. That linen is imported from Italy." Martha looked up, her eyes watery and confused. Cataracts had stolen much of her vision, leaving the world a blur of shapes and shadows. "I'm sorry, Davy," she whispered, using the nickname she had called him when he was a boy. "My hands, they just don't listen to me anymore." "Use the napkin," David commanded, returning to his meal. "And don't call me Davy. I'm not 5 years old." Martha nodded obediently, wiping her mouth with a trembling hand. She looked at her son, this stranger in a suit, and tried to find the little boy she had raised. She remembered a different kitchen, a kitchen with peeling linoleum floors and a stove that only worked on 2 burners. She remembered coming home from her second job at the factory, her back screaming in pain, only to stand at that stove for an hour to make David his favorite soup. She remembered going hungry so he could have second helpings. She remembered the day his father died, leaving them with nothing but debt. She had scrubbed floors, washed clothes, and worked until her fingers bled to put David through college. "You're going to be great, Davy," she used to tell him, smoothing his hair as he studied by candlelight to save electricity. "You're going to change the world." And he had. He had changed his world completely. He had climbed the ladder of success and pulled it up behind him. He had brought her to live in this mansion, yes, but not out of love, out of obligation, and perhaps out of a desire to hide her away where her poverty wouldn't embarrass him in public. "The nursing home called again today," Elena said, finally putting her phone down. She swirled her wine glass. "They have a spot opening up in the executive wing. It's very exclusive, David. They have a garden. She likes gardens." Martha froze. She understood that tone. They were talking about sending her away, again. "I don't want to go," Martha said, her voice small. "I want to stay with you. I won't be a bother. I'll stay in my room." "You are a bother, Martha," Elena snapped. "Yesterday you left the water running in the bathroom and flooded the hallway. The rugs are ruined. We can't live like this. We have the senator coming for dinner next week. What if she spills soup on him? It's a liability." David chewed his steak slowly. He didn't defend his mother. He didn't look at her. He just calculated the cost. The cost of the rugs, the cost of the nursing home, the cost of his reputation. "We'll discuss it later," David said dismissively. "Let's just finish dinner." The air in the room grew heavy. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. It was the silence of a debt unpaid, of love unreturned.
The incident happened 10 minutes later. Martha was trying so hard. She focused every ounce of her remaining willpower on the spoon. Lift, steady, move to mouth. But then a spasm hit her arm, a sharp electric jolt of pain. Her hand jerked violently. The heavy porcelain bowl tipped. It didn't just spill a drop this time. The entire bowl of hot, thick lobster bisque cascaded off the table. It splashed onto the Italian tablecloth. It poured onto the expensive Persian rug. And worst of all, a large splash landed on David's trousers, his $3,000 custom-tailored trousers. David jumped up, his chair screeching against the floor. "Damn it!" he roared. The sound was so loud that Martha flinched, dropping the spoon. It clattered onto the floor, spinning in the mess of spilled soup. "Look what you did!" Elena shrieked, standing up to check her own dress. "You clumsy old hag! Look at the carpet!" Martha was shaking uncontrollably now. Tears spilled from her cloudy eyes. "I'm sorry. Oh, God, I'm sorry. I'll clean it up. Give me a rag. I'll clean it." She started to push her chair back, trying to bend down, her frail bones creaking. "Stop!" David yelled. His face was red, his veins bulging in his neck. The veneer of the sophisticated businessman had cracked, revealing the bully underneath. "I work 18 hours a day. I give you a roof over your head. I give you clothes. I give you food better than anything you ever cooked in your miserable life. And this is how you thank me? By destroying my home?" "It was an accident, Davy," Martha sobbed. "It's always an accident." David grabbed the empty bowl from the table and slammed it down. "You're like a child, a messy, ungrateful child. You want to eat like an animal? You want to make a mess on the floor?" A dark idea crossed David's mind. It was fueled by stress, by arrogance, and by a deep-seated resentment of his own humble origins that his mother represented. "Since you like the floor so much, maybe you should finish your dinner there." Martha looked up, not understanding. "What?" David grabbed a bread roll from the basket. He threw it onto the soup-stained rug. Then he grabbed a piece of steak from his own plate and dropped it right into the puddle of bisque on the floor. "Eat it," David commanded. Elena gasped, but she didn't stop him. A cruel smirk played on her lips. She watched with fascination. "David, please," Martha cried. "I'm your mother." "If you want to eat tonight, you eat that, or you can go to your room hungry. Those are your choices. I'm tired of treating you like a queen when you act like a pig." The room spun around Martha. The humiliation was worse than the hunger. It was worse than the arthritis. It broke something inside her heart that had survived poverty, widowhood, and hardship. It broke her dignity. Slowly, painfully, Martha slid off her chair. Her knees hit the hard floor. She reached out a shaking hand toward the piece of bread soaked in soup. "That's it," David sneered, crossing his arms. "Learn your place." And at that exact moment, a knock echoed through the house.
It wasn't the doorbell. It was a knock. Solid, heavy. 3 distinct raps on the massive oak front door. Boom, boom, boom. The sound seemed to vibrate through the walls, silencing the dining room instantly. "Who on earth is that?" Elena asked, annoyed. "We have a gate. Security shouldn't let anyone up the driveway." "I'll handle it," David said, adjusting his stained trousers. "Probably a delivery driver who got lost. Get up, Mother. Stop embarrassing yourself." But Martha didn't get up. She stayed on her knees, her head bowed, praying, not for herself, but for her son. "Lord, forgive him. He doesn't know what he's doing. The money has blinded him." David marched to the front door and yanked it open, ready to berate the intruder. Standing on the porch was a man. He didn't look like a delivery driver. He looked tired. He wore a simple, rough-spun tunic under a dusty coat that looked like it had traveled 1,000 miles. His hair was long and wind-blown. He wore sandals, and his feet were covered in the dust of the road. But it was his eyes that stopped the words in David's throat. They were eyes that held the depth of the ocean and the fire of a supernova. They were ancient eyes in a young face. When he looked at David, David felt like he was made of glass, transparent, fragile, and empty. "What do you want?" David asked, his voice less forceful than he intended. "This is private property. How did you get past the gate?" "I have traveled a long way," the stranger said. His voice was soft, like the wind through dry leaves, yet it carried a resonance that made David's chest tighten. "I am hungry and thirsty. May I come in and share your table?" David laughed, a short, incredulous bark of a laugh. "Share my table? Look at you. You're a beggar. I don't run a soup kitchen. Get off my porch before I call the police." "I ask only for the crumbs, or perhaps what has fallen on the floor." David froze. A chill ran down his spine. How did he know? "I don't know what you're talking about," David lied. "We have nothing for you. Go away." The stranger didn't move. He took a step forward, and David, a man who bench-pressed 300 pounds, felt an irresistible force push him back. He didn't touch David. He simply occupied the space, and the space yielded to him. The stranger walked past David into the foyer. "Hey, you can't come in here," David shouted, chasing after him. The stranger walked straight to the dining room, as if he knew exactly where to go. Elena screamed when she saw the dirty man enter her pristine sanctuary. "David, get him out! He's going to get dust everywhere!" The stranger ignored her. He ignored the crystal chandelier. He ignored the expensive paintings. His eyes went straight to the floor. Straight to Martha. Martha looked up. Through her blurry vision, she saw a figure of light. She didn't see the dusty clothes. She saw a king. "Madam," the stranger said, bowing his head with respect that no one had shown Martha in years. He extended a hand. "Please, rise." I can't," Martha whispered. "I made a mess. I have to clean it." "The mess is not yours to clean," the stranger said. He reached down and took her hand. The moment his skin touched hers, Martha gasped. The pain in her joints, the constant gnawing fire of arthritis, vanished instantly. Her fingers straightened. The trembling stopped. A wave of vitality rushed through her body, filling her lungs with air, her heart with a steady, strong rhythm. She stood up. She stood up straight, her back unbending for the first time in a decade. She blinked, and the cataracts cleared from her eyes like fog lifting from a valley. She saw the room in sharp, vibrant detail. She saw the stranger's face. "My lord." David and Elena stood paralyzed. They saw Martha stand up, not like an old woman, but with the grace and strength of a woman in her prime. What did you do to her?" Elena stammered. The stranger turned to face the couple. The warmth in his eyes vanished, replaced by a cold, terrifying neutrality. It was the face of a judge reading a verdict. "You have a beautiful home," the stranger said, looking around. "You have so much: gold, silver, silk, fine wine." He walked to the table. He picked up a silver fork. He looked at it, then looked at David. "And yet," the stranger continued, "you have nothing." "I have everything," David snapped, trying to regain control. "I built this empire. I earned every penny." "You earned nothing," the stranger's voice boomed. The crystal glasses on the table began to vibrate. The fresh flowers in the centerpiece withered and died in seconds, their petals turning to brown, crisp husks. The expensive mahogany table itself began to rot. The wood turned spongy, then brittle, collapsing under the weight of the ash. In 10 seconds, the magnificent banquet was gone. In its place was a pile of rot, dust, and decay. The smell was unbearable, the stench of death and wasted potential. Elena shrieked, backing away until she hit the wall. "My furniture! My table!" David stared at the pile of ash. He reached out to touch where his steak had been, and his hand came away covered in soot. "This is what your wealth looks like to heaven. It is ash, it is dust, because it is devoid of love." David looked up at the stranger. Fear, real and primal, finally gripped him. "Who are you?" "I am the guest you did not invite. I am the one who sits with the lonely. I am the one who eats with the beggars. And I am the son who honors his mother." The stranger turned to Martha. He smiled again, a smile that lit up the ruined room. "Martha, you are hungry." "Yes, Lord," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Come." The stranger gestured to the kitchen door. "There is soup on the stove, not the soup of pride, but the soup of memory." Martha walked to the kitchen. She didn't shuffle, she walked. David watched her go, realizing he hadn't seen her walk like that since he was a child.
David fell into the nearest chair, which was one of the few things that hadn't turned to dust yet. He looked at his hands, stained with soot. He looked at his wife, who was weeping over her ruined tablecloth, caring more about the fabric than the miracle that had just occurred. And he realized how ugly his life had become. He looked at the spot on the floor where he had told his mother to eat. The soup stain was gone. The bread was gone. The floor was clean. "David?" the stranger said. He was standing right next to him now. David didn't dare look up. "Kill me," David whispered. "Just kill me. I deserve it." "Death is not the punishment," the stranger said. "Living with the truth is." The stranger placed a hand on David's shoulder. It felt heavy, like a mountain. "You have been given a gift tonight, David.
You have seen the world through my eyes. You saw your mother not as a burden, but as a treasure. And you saw your wealth not as a prize, but as dust. I can't fix this, David sobbed, tears cutting tracks through the soot on his face. I went too far. She can never forgive me. She is a mother, the stranger said softly. Forgiveness is what she does. But the question is not if she will forgive you. The question is, will you change? The stranger leaned in close. Your mother has little time left on this earth, not because of age, but because I am preparing a place for her, a place where she will be the queen she deserves to be. You have a season, a short season, to rewrite the end of this story. Do not waste it. David blinked. When he opened his eyes, the stranger was gone. The room was still ruined. The table was still a pile of rotting wood and ash. The smell was still there. It wasn't a dream. David stood up. His legs felt weak. He looked at Elena. "Call the cleaners," David said, his voice hoarse. "Throw it all out. All of it." "But David," Elena cried, "the table, the rugs." "I don't care," David roared. "It's just dust. It's all just dust." He turned and ran towards the kitchen. He found Martha standing by the stove. She was stirring a pot. It wasn't the chef's fancy copper pot. It was an old, battered aluminum pot she had kept hidden in the back of the cupboard. The smell filling the kitchen wasn't lobster bisque. It was potato soup. Simple, hearty, peasant food. The smell of his childhood. Martha turned around. She looked at him with her clear, bright eyes. She didn't look afraid anymore. "Mom," David choked out. He fell to his knees on the kitchen tiles. He wrapped his arms around her waist and buried his face in her apron. He wept. He wept like the 5-year-old boy who had scraped his knee. He wept for the years he had stolen from her. He wept for the monster he had become. "I'm sorry," he wailed. "I'm so, so sorry. Please, Mom, I'm sorry." Martha put the spoon down. She placed her hands, her steady, strong hands, on his head. She stroked his hair, just like she used to when he studied by candlelight. "I know, Davy. I know." She didn't lecture him. She didn't demand an apology. She just held him. That was her victory. That was her power.